So hey everybody, it's that time of year again. Uh, this is when we usually stream a video of playing through every single game from the OctoJam. For those of you who haven't seen this before, the OctoJam is the only game jam dedicated to the Chip 8 platform. It's a virtual machine from 1977 that has survived until today, and we're making homebrew for it. So I'm InternetJanitor, aka John Ernest, and I'm here with JonTerp.
Yo.
And Everdraed.
Hey, it's me, Everdraed.
Yeah, so
let's see some games.
So I didn't mean to step over you there, but I will be the one playing the games. So don't complain to IJ if I'm bad.
Yeah, me and John have not played these games before. John is playing them for the first time. I'm seeing them for the first time. And IJ has, I think, played all these right and has some write-up about them.
Yeah, I've played all but one of these games pointedly, and I've read through the source code. So I'm going to be here to sort of provide a little bit of technical assistance and fill in gaps as necessary.
All right, so we're going to flip over to our first game here called Tetris.
Tetris. So this game is by 12me21. This is a pretty straightforward implementation of Tetris. It's 730 bytes, and it is written to be compatible with the Cosmac VIP. That's the original platform that Chip 8 ran on.
I'm trying to figure out what the controls are here.
Will this be real time?
You're doing okay. Yeah, this is running at a realistic speed. Everything.
That's impressive. Man.
What are the controls here?
I think it's Q and W and R to rotate.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna
also
refresh
A
the page
drops the piece, if I recall correctly. And as you just flick to the source code there, one of the things that is sort of interesting about this is if you read the description, the creator said that he hand assembled this one.
Whoa.
So he translated it. Ordinarily, when you use Octo, you have kind of a high-level programming language that you can use for writing games that boil down to the machine code that Chip 8 uses. But it was designed so that you could just work it out with pen and paper. That's the way that people did when the platform was new. So in, I guess, a pursuit of historical accuracy, he did it that way. And it seems to have worked out pretty well. It's a totally solid Tetris game.
Does it do anything special if you get a full Tetris? I want to see John get one.
Not as far as I could tell.
Is there a little Russian man that can dance sometimes?
That might be a little bit out of scope.
It's handwritten machine code.
Yeah, this is really cool. It's extremely impressive that they were able to do this by hand. So what was the original limitations of Tetris, the first implementation? Like, what was
the version that ran on IBM PCs, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, it used text mode to display everything. I don't actually know what the specs were.
I'm just wondering how comparable the systems that were originally running.
In terms of the power of the IBM PC, so like 2 orders of magnitude more RAM, a CPU that was so since the Chip 8 was a virtual machine running on top of the RCA 1802. Again, you're looking at like 2 or 3 orders of magnitude more potential performance, even though the IBM PC had a CPU that was only maybe like fractionally faster than the actual hardware of the VIP. It's like an entirely different universe of performance, and I don't recall exactly what the resolution was available on the IBM PC, but I would imagine that it's in excess of an 80 by 40 character display with like 6 by 8 characters or something like that. The VIP only gave you a 64 by 32 pixel display, as you're seeing right now.
It's really kind of cool to see the Tetris pieces limited down to a single pixel each, as small as you could possibly represent Tetris.
And it really doesn't change the gameplay.
It's a very competent Tetris game.
It's identical.
I really like Tetris. I play a lot of Tetris games, and this is actually extremely competent.
It's solid.
Really solid.
I think that it handles bumping properly.
Oh, whoa. Well, kudos.
I mean,
for
like
that.
to the extent that you can jiggle just before it settles. It doesn't actually displace. And
Oh, it does
the
not.
rules for that stuff get really crazy.
There's a lot of different versions of where that's viable. But yeah, that's really impressive stuff. Especially that it was handmade. That's really cool.
Everdraed, can you pop open Twitch chat and keep an eye on it for me? Since people are talking in it quite a bit, and I can't keep an eye on it right now. Oh God. Okay. Well, that's
Focus
it.
on the Tetris.
The Tetris is done.
Tetris over.
I have been finished. Okay. Is there anything more to this, or did you want
to? No, that's pretty much what I got.
Okay.
He said he couldn't spare the bytes for dance animation, and that's totally acceptable. As long as it was a thought, as long as that was a process of like
it entered your head.
Yeah.
So if you like Tetris, it's actually really cool. I'm going to be looking at the source code for that later because I really enjoyed that. Our next game is called Adventure.
Adventure. So this game was not completed as submitted. So what's there is kind of just some fragments of concept code. If you follow the link in the page for this one, it brings you to a gist that has.
Oh, there is nothing here.
Yeah, not that. You need to go to the actual submission page for this one. There's a URL under there that has a gist with the source code for kind of an unfinished start at trying to make a text adventure game. What's there seems really promising. There's some text output routines and stuff. It looks like this was a submission that just kind of ran out of time. And it happens to the best of us. I really hope that next year this participant will dust this off and give it another go.
Well, yeah.
So nothing to really show there.
Destroy loot, no.
A nice scroll through the source code. Okay.
This is how we honor it.
Nibble flag equals 1.
All right. 2048 game. I want to actually ask you. I want to take a break and ask you about something real quick. I'm noticing that Firefox is saying the tab is constantly outputting audio, even though there is no audio.
So if you run it in, that's interesting. Well, if you're running an ExoChip game, then that will happen.
Okay.
So this you should you break this out into the standalone Octo runtime. This is a game that could run on a Cosmac VIP, but it makes use of ExoChip, which are some Octo specific extended instructions that let you do simple audio stuff. So there are actually sound effects for this game.
I'm not hearing them though.
If you're running them in Octo standalone.
No, it's in standalone. This is Firefox.
When you start the game by pressing X.
Okay.
You don't have Firefox muted.
Then slide the blocks. You get sound effects when the blocks move.
Firefox is turned all the way down.
Oh,
but
there you go.
Oh, ooh, it's very faint. Yeah. So to the people in chat, I'm gonna actually stop playing for a bit, so I cut this out. It's silent because we're gonna be recording this and probably laying over some background audio later. This is all for editing, so.
Right.
Yep. Just so you know what you're getting into.
Oh, you're doing good.
Yeah, this is a really solid implementation of 2048. The sound effects for this are simple. They're just kind of a bonus feature, really. But they're distinct. This is kind of what I was expecting the ExoChip audio functionality to be used for in games. Just you get some kind of ragged tones and percussive stuff. But if you basically just comment out a couple of those instructions, you get something that should run on classic hardware. It's kind of too bad that this doesn't animate the pieces sliding. I think that would have been a nice enhancement, but I can see why, for performance reasons, that was avoided.
It seems like doing an animation of that with each tile flipping, that'd be a lot of
it's a little bit expensive.
Do you think if they Do you think there's implementations of that where it could be done in real time on the original hardware? Or would that be...
Potentially. This game has quite a bit of memory still available. I think that the comments were alluding to trying to get this such that it would run on a VIP that only had 2 kilobytes of RAM.
Oh,
It was expandable to 4K, and that's what most Chip 8 environments pretend to have. But
the 128 gets a little squished.
Yeah. So as this was 1576 bytes. And the source code for this is really quite compact. It's like maybe 300 lines of code. It's a pretty interesting read.
If you think about it, if you want to reduce this down to make it an even smaller display, you could use symbology, but you can also just use... They're all powers of 2, right?
Yeah.
Or no, I guess there's half.
You could use like numbers of... You could use pips or something.
Yeah. There's definitely symbology that you could do to make it a little bit smaller, and then maybe that... Because definitely the 128, it looks like it's going to get pretty difficult to...
So when you're drawing sprites in Chip 8, you always draw a 8 pixel wide and a 0 to 15 pixel tall stripe. So making something smaller than about 8 by 8
that's actually
isn't really
tricky.
a performance concern. It's more about just that on the classic hardware, every time you draw a sprite, it waits for a V-blank. So basically, the more sprites you are drawing, the lower your frame rate is. This is why a lot of the successful and memorable Chip 8 games are really just like maybe 2 or 3 sprites moving around in the main gameplay. Or they go for something like this game, where it's a puzzle game, and the actual like Twitch action aspects of it don't matter as much. That's why I think it might be possible to get away with adding some little animations to this.
It's amazing how much Threes kind of relies on that animation to know what's happening between turns.
It is a little disorienting.
Yeah.
You missed your chance of combining the 128.
I know.
That's a brutal thing to say.
And one thing that I should note is that this is one of 3 games that were submitted by the same user this time.
Oh, wow.
So we have only begun.
256. You're doing really well, actually. Came back.
This is a very easy version of this game, I feel like.
I think it doesn't fill up a space every round after a point. It's definitely pulling its punches a bit. But that's good. That's honestly probably better, given the sort of increased difficulty of just having some lesser awareness of how the pieces are moving.
I know that there's a really simple trick to getting up to a certain point in Threes where you just go down and to the right repeatedly.
That isn't guaranteed to work, but probabilistically it will tend to get you a pretty high score.
That's all I care about. The probabilisticallys.
Probabilisticallys. Wow, that is okay. I should probably turn this off.
The screen flash.
You're getting drawn
That
a
was
little bit
huge. No, the is now following.
Oh.
Yeah, another thing maybe worth noting is that this has a high score function, and for an HP48 version of this, it would have been possible to use flag registers. The HP48 was the calculator that Superchip, an enhancement of Chip 8, ran on originally, and it let you have a few bytes of persistent storage
512
between runs of games.
That's some good number crunching.
Yeah,
I'm kind of interested to see how it would handle the 4 digits.
like what it looks like.
Yeah, that's a while to go. I would say that's about double as much time.
Don't hurt yourself, John.
I think we might have to have a seizure warning with this. Can we the flashing is so intense. It's so angry.
Do you think you could like put in a certain like to program the flashing so it is not at that frequency that would hurt people with epilepsy?
The way that it works currently is essentially just that it is on or it is off, and so it's possible to pulse it to get more regular flashing. But if you just have the buzzer on continuously, the way that Octo shows that is just a a background color.
No, don't do that. I wonder if you got like a setting for it to just persist for a few frames, just so like if you do have a spammy thing, it wouldn't, because that is kind of hitting seizure, and I'm kind of covering my face to not.
It makes the game more intense and immersive. At some point in the near future, look forward to the Oculus Rift enabled OctoViewer.
It must be horrible to have a seizure inducing sort of thing in VR. That's ugh.
Well, if we don't do that, then .hack will never become a thing. Wow.
I think we've probably seen everything that we need to see for this.
Yeah, so this is a really confident 2040.
Really want to see what 1024 looks like.
I don't. I'm just gonna sit here and press in WASD until you tell me we're done. Anyway, that was 248. Pretty cool.
Oh, was there anything in the code that looked interesting? Anything you'd want to talk about for 2048?
Not extremely. I think that there are a few situations where this game might be able to benefit from using the new macro system. There's a little bit of repetition, but in general, it's pretty concise, well formatted. It's worth taking a look.
So you've made all these tools and utilities for Octo. Is that way beyond anything people back in the day would have access to? Were they like extremely limited in pretty much every way?
The key difference between developing now with Octo and having these tools available and developing back then was the ease of iteration on things.
Okay.
So nowadays, if we want to make a change to something, it's just, type in a few lines of code, press run, and you're back in. You can open a debugger. You have a lot of ways to introspect into your game. In the old days, the way that it was done was you would, get a sheet of paper and write out your program and then hand translate it byte by byte and then hand key those in on a hex keypad, every single byte. Which is why if you pick apart some of the older games for the platform, the way that they're written is sort of weird and not very efficient in spots, because if you think about it, they've realized that they wanted to change something about the game. So instead of reassembling the whole thing, they had to go in and sort of, do open heart surgery on the thing.
I'm going to grab a water real quick.
The access to better tooling really does make a huge difference in what you can practically achieve, even if in principle anybody could have made this game by hand back in the day.
So there's a lot of finesse of just knowing what your space was that you're working with and how to return to it, I guess.
Right. It's just the matter of, for example, if you're doing pixel art, think about the difference between having access to Photoshop with layers, even if you're just doing something in black and white, versus, okay, you have a sheet of graph paper and a colored pencil. And then once you're done, once you decide that the graphics are what you want, you're going to have to translate them into hex code and embed them into your program and punch it in and bring it up on the computer, and then you get to see if it looks the way that you wanted it to.
Well, it's kind of exciting, though. That's sort of like a Christmas present when you don't know if you've been bad or good.
It's like opening the same Christmas present for months.
But it's slightly different each time.
It's a different kind of labor of love.
Yeah.
All right. First depth search of maze. Okay.
I hope this is chord-based.
This is less of a game and more of just an interesting program, although it does have a playable part. So this is an approach to creating a maze generator that uses a depth-first traversal. Press any chip 8 key and it'll start going. It's pretty fun to watch. So this coils around and fills all of the space available on the screen here. This is a super chip program, so it's 128 by 64 pixels, and it is using the frame buffer for all of the intermediate storage of generating this maze. So it does a random walk until it runs out of directions to go, and then it backtracks a bit, and then it walks forward again. And once it's done with this, it strips off all of its path markers, and we have a regular maze.
Oh, wow.
And if you look in the top left corner, you've got a little piece that you can move around, and bottom right, there's a blinking dot.
Good
Good luck, John.
This is very small.
Making use of every pixel.
Let me.
Well, why don't you just press down right and see if it wins on this one, huh, John?
Just gonna crank up the size on the stream real quick.
And so one thing that's kind of fun about the way that this is done is it actually is running at a fairly reasonable speed for Super Chip. It would probably be a bit slower because of just how much sprite drawing it does in the process of executing. But like you could imagine running this on your graphing calculator and trying to survive an entire calculus course, working through this little maze.
John's doing pretty good. It feels like this particular algorithm. Well, I guess it does. It generates some different.
It generates some dead ends,
yeah.
but it'll always be simple mazes. That is, mazes that don't have any islands.
Okay.
When you generate a maze in this way, I believe that there is always a top half and bottom half which are separable. Basically, like if this was a physical thing cut out of cardboard, you could tug at the top right and top left and bottom left corners, and it would come apart into two pieces.
Oh.
The controls aren't very good.
Well, I think that the controls and the ability to wander around this maze and try to solve it were an afterthought at best. But it is a pretty neat programming demo of just a classic maze generation algorithm.
I definitely think the generation part is extremely mesmerizing. It's a super cool visual to see.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. That's what's important. There is actually a little screen that you can see if you make it all the way to the end, but it's not a huge deal. You've pretty much seen what this game has to offer, John.
I feel like I'm getting close.
You're invested at this point.
Let me try to reverse.
I can barely see what I'm doing. I'm having
Old
to
man
look at
JonTerp.
the blown up stream.
I think you are pretty good. Yeah, you're on the right path.
But yeah, I mean, we could also go into the source code and jump right to the screen.
I mean, you could. Do you want to?
I think you got that. I think you got
not just
this.
yourself, but everyone else. That final reward.
I feel like it's gonna take me all the way through I feel like we're only about like a quarter of the way done.
I don't think that is the case. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, part of what's fun here.
No, you're good. You'll go bottom left, and you'll start going right.
Part of what's fun here is that you saw the entire maze get generated, so you know exactly what the solution is, but you just weren't really paying attention. You were too mesmerized by the drawing algorithm.
Yeah, you got it.
Sorry, I'm leaning pretty far away from my mic to actually stare at the monitor.
Wait, did you change? No, I guess you're good.
Here we go.
Oh, I'm so excited!
So we go up here, right? Go over here?
Yeah, that's where you go.
I'm lost in this maze.
At least you have fun.
It's true. Oh, there's a smiley face too.
At least we have fun?
At least you have fun.
Well, at least we do.
He's not saying you had fun, but you have the capability to have fun, so you should take that as solace.
Looks pretty intense. Oh, well, I want to see it generate the maze at 1,000.
It's a little bit more exciting at maximum speed.
But what does it look like at 7? That's impressive that runs at 100 cycles. What's the I keep forgetting every year. What's the super chip cycle accurate to the hardware?
It's a little bit hard to say because different instructions on those emulators or different instructions on those actual hardware-based interpreters have different costs. usually we estimate it as somewhere around like 35 to 40 cycles per frame on average. But drawing operations are slower than other ops. Octo doesn't really try to be cycle accurate by any means. You can see as this is drawing in super slow mode that it's drawing a single pixel to sort of probe at the frame buffer. Because if you remember, when you draw a sprite, if the sprite overlaps with pixels that are already drawn into the frame buffer, then it will set one of the registers, VF, to contain a collision flag. Many games use this for achieving pixel-perfect collision between game sprites, but you can also use it as a way of sort of storing information on the screen directly and then reading it out.
Has anyone ever tried to do like the frame buffer tricks that the NES does, where they section off a couple pixels on the side of the screen to store data?
I'm not aware that. Well, I mean, there are plenty of games that have been done here that store most of their state on the screen. Like, for example, the breakout games usually use if the brick isn't there on the screen, it's not there logically either. I'm not aware of any games that have needed to visually encode any data in the frame buffer for purposes other than just kind of world state like this. I think that if you saw extraneous pixels in an NES game, it's probably indicative of the fact that they were overlaying data into a region of video memory or one of the lookup tables used by the graphics processor.
I don't want to get into the weeds on this. I think I know exactly what's happening there. There's a really good video on YouTube from the Retro Mechanics Explained channel that goes into detail on why NES games do that. But I will digress.
Just the fact that there's there's content safe area on your TV, and then there's overscan.
Yeah, you can put stuff in overscan on older consoles. Like
usually stuff shows up there by accident if you aren't carefully controlling aspects of the raster timing.
The really famous example is Ocarina of Time had a mini map icon that no one else saw until it started emulating the game. But yeah, that's the Maze game.
So let's move on to the third and final game by Eiko Z1. It's a Minesweeper implementation.
Oh man, the images for these aren't actual like clickable images. Threw me off there for a sec. Okay, Minesweeper. So
this is the classic game. ASWD, if I recall correctly, move around. XZC or XZV are for marking places and flagging them. I played a game through this, and I don't think anything actually happens when you successfully flag all the mines. You just sort of, that you won. I don't think this was quite finished, but what's here is great. I think that the graphics look amazingly good for all implementation. Like, it reads very, very well for being two colors and limited resolution.
Yeah, this feels better than the way, I don't know if it's a similar thing that they do in the actual Minesweeper, but the way that these are, they feel very raised up. I don't know if it's because of the simplicity of it that it makes this really pop out, but they definitely, the ground seems like it's exposed, like you're digging into it. That's actually really nice.
So I just feel like it's a really nicely done game from a visual standpoint. Another thing that's interesting about this is that, like, right now this is running at a fairly unrealistic speed by default. But I tried cranking this down to like 30 cycles per frame, and it is completely playable still.
Man, I meant to flag that. Shit.
If you slow this way down, then it's possible to see a little bit more of the way that the flood fill algorithm works.
It's running at 1,000.
Yeah, so crank it down to, is this 15 or 7?
This is 7.
And like its intro has a cool animation.
Yeah. So it's a little bit sluggish if you run it at 7, but it's still playable. And now you can see the way that it is flood It does
Oh,
kind of a it does kind of a depth first traversal of walking around the region that it's exploring. Doing things recursively is sort of difficult on chip 8 because while there is a function call stack, it isn't accessible to software. So you can't like push values onto it and pop values off for for later reference. You have to keep everything in registers and dump them to memory when you want to back them up. So if you want something like a recursive stack, you have to implement it from scratch yourself, and that is a little bit slow and expensive. So that's the approach that this game took.
John,
And
you made a boo boo.
What?
Those ones have two things by them on
What do
the
you mean?
left. There would be twos if what you put down there was correct.
Ah.
Yeah, but who's the clone?
You can tell.
You can tell.
Hmm. Ah,
There
I
you go.
guessed right.
And one thing that's kind of interesting from a coding perspective is that this
no.
actually uses a very tightly packed representation for all of the board data. So it's using a packed struct where different bits in a single byte represent whether it's flagged, raised, lowered, whether or not there's a mine, what the neighbor value is. And I think that if raw speed was the most important thing here, it would probably have been better to use several separate buffers that are each sort of splayed out for those properties. But in playing with emulation speed, evidently it's fast enough.
Can you increase the number of mines that spawn? Is there like a variable that you can set in this?
I didn't take a look at that. It might be possible.
Because I want more mines.
What's yours is mine.
I mean, this looks like it's picking some random number here.
Yeah, I don't remember if it used just a probability for when something is going to be a mine.
Just a little debug function. Oops. It's neat.
Ooh.
All right, well, that was Minesweeper.
Yep, there you go.
Very solid mine sweeping. And very nice visuals for Octo. That's a cool look.
Yeah, totally.
All right, the next game here is Space Racer.
This is by Bilbo Pop. He has been here before. This is we're not going to get an ideal experience for this in the Jam stream because this is actually a 2-player competitive game. So it's basically like a versus mode Frogger.
Oh,
So you've got this star field that's migrating along, and you're trying to just move your spaceship and not hit the stars and get to the far end of the map as quickly as possible. And you can move both forward and back. So this is another VIP compatible game. It could run at a realistic speed on original hardware, and there are so few multiplayer games for this platform. I'm really impressed with how this is a simple idea executed very nicely. I think this would actually be pretty fun with 2 people.
Yeah, I think you need an egg timer though.
It's moderately frustrating just by yourself. So there is actually a challenge. But if you're also being psyched out by the other player doing better than you, I think it would get pretty fun. One thing that I noticed in looking through the implementation of this is when it's drawing the star field, it actually erases. So the star field is a bunch of sprites that are being drawn, and it actually. Oh dear. So this one doesn't have a frame rate limiter.
Whoa! Oh, there's a time limit.
There is actually a timer that's going down, as you can see.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
So the star field is a bunch of large sprites that get erased and redrawn periodically in order to scroll horizontally. But I think that this could be made quite a bit faster if it used a set of sprites to initialize drawing the star field, and then a modified set of sprites which erase the stars in their current position and at the same time draw the new stars. Whenever you draw a sprite in chip 8, you're XORing the sprite against the frame buffer that's already there. So you're like toggling pixels. And so with carefully designed sprite masks, you can erase something and draw a new thing in just one sprite draw. Yeah, the author also commented that that he was playing around with.
No, is that going to make it impossible?
with using making this a hybrid game that used RCA 1802 machine code in addition to chip 8 instructions in order to achieve a faster horizontal scrolling. This is something that a few early games did, but there aren't very many modern emulators that can support that can support 1802 machine code, since it's sort of an extension to what's normally available in chip 8. It requires much more demanding hardware emulation than these interpreters usually have. Are you having fun, John?
Oh, I'm done. I also modified the game to make it go longer and broke it.
Yeah, I noticed.
It'd be kind of neat. I don't know how viable it would be to have the different rows. Maybe have a few of them have different speed, so like they vary up.
Well, the way that this is implemented right now, I don't think it would be very easy to do that.
Yeah.
You would need the different rates to be sort of multiples of one another.
Well, I mean, the thing is, the fastest rate would be having the pixels move one tile still, so you keep collision, and then everything else would just be staying in a spot for 2 pixel or for 2 frames for 3 frames.
I mean, I'm talking in terms of the technique that's used to render and move them in a reasonably quick fashion.
Yeah,
it's actually like by far the most computationally intensive part of this game is redrawing that whole star field. So the way that you go about doing it is really performance sensitive. I think that if he used sort of XOR mask sprites to gain some efficiency, I think it might give him enough of an edge to do something like that, and it would make the gameplay a little bit more interesting. But all in all, I think that this was really fun.
It's really neat to see a two-player
people playing this on actual hardware.
If you can imagine the commercial for this game back in the day, the 2 people playing, and it's just a blast.
Oh dear! So this is the third in the inimitable Kesha was Bird saga. This is by Woozle, who's been with us for a time. And this is the one game that I have intentionally avoided playing because I wanted to go in fresh with you guys. These are always an experience. This is using ExoChip. You can see that it looks quite a bit different from many of the other games. We have 4 colors available.
Whoa!
Jesus Christ!
This is seriously amazing.
This is one of the more impressive things I've seen in the years that we've done this. This is, oh my god, there's portals.
This looks like an above-average Commodore 64 game.
Yeah, this is giving Monty on the Run a run for his money.
Oh. Does it actually want me to climb that tree? No. Okay.
I can't even begin to know what you're supposed to do in any of these games.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever very. I think it's difficult to parse exactly what the goal is in a lot of geisha games.
The scrolling is very smooth.
So most of the other
Uh-oh.
games that we've been seeing so far have been like less than 2 kilobytes. You want to guess how big this one is?
Big?
64 kilobytes.
64 kilobytes would be the absolute maximum. This is actually weighing in at an almost paltry 39 kilobytes.
Oh, wow. Lots of space. You could have some great.
Ooh, I think I broke it.
I think it does have some great stuff.
Well,
Hang on. Huh.
oh, that's interesting. I wonder what goes wrong sometimes with that.
So when you're doing color graphics in OctoJam, there's basically two separate graphics planes, and it is possible to do effects on them separately. It could be that there was some sort of bug and you moved just at the time when one of the planes hadn't been cleared.
I guess I can't get that one.
It's kind of hard to tell what is a platform and like what is collectible.
Also, unlike most of the games on this platform, the Kesha games have all been obfuscated. So I can't really say anything about the way that this is programmed. I don't know about the various secrets of this game.
Yeah, that's kind of weird that they would obfuscate it.
The
understand that.
general trippiness of these games is such that it is almost impossible to tell if something is a bug or entirely intentional. So good on you guys.
You have to have trust.
We'll never know.
Yeah, somehow obviously you have to enable that time gate somehow.
I'm deeply intrigued. Oh, hey, it's an invisible maze. Everybody's favorite game mechanic.
So would this be trickier than you would normally expect, just because you would be normally using pixel data for collision?
I should note that in the Twitch chat, there is actually a source code release. It's just not with the main game.
So I guess there's a good reason for the obfuscation.
Well, I imagine that it's twofold. One is that
Are you
for
fucking
very,
kidding
very
me?
large games, it makes loading them faster because the compiler doesn't have to do as much work. And the other thing is that there's probably some legitimate arguments to having secrets in a game that's supposed to be surprising and has a lot of variety like these typically do.
I think the soundtrack is pretty impressive for Octo.
Apparently there are special abilities that you can obtain.
So this is a Metroidvania.
As far as I can tell. I think that there's some way to
You're collecting those sparkles.
I'm poking around a little bit in the source code. See if I can give you any illicit hints.
Already breaking the dev intentions.
So did you ever figure out why there was if there's a reason why there's 2 entries this game?
I don't know currently. It's probably worth noting that the music is also surprisingly great.
Oh.
Suffice to say, there is a huge amount of content here. I think it's okay if we don't get to see the entirety of this game on the stream. Everybody who's watching this there should have been enough of this that you're intrigued. You should play this game by yourself. Seriously. And go back and play all the other games that led into it.
Oh,
Sparkle. Ooh.
it's a little buggy. Just a little bit.
I definitely think having some sort of marker for collision, something to give you a little bit more of a heads up, if that's through just the visuals or through color usage, I think that would be a big help.
Yeah, collision is very random.
It feels like it's based off of where your feet are, and then your feet sprite changes. So it's... Without that being solid, it's really hard to make a solid guess when you're going to hit a platform. And with the platforms not being super well defined visually, that makes it even more difficult.
Yeah, I agree.
But this is super cool stuff. This is,
I'm sure that there are a bunch of speedrun tactics you can use to really abuse the platformer physics.
Well, okay. That was.
We've probably seen enough. This game is fucking amazing.
I'm like, I want to take a look at the code.
Can you go to the left on that bottom screen? Oh.
Well,
the white pixels. I'm not sure if those are platform pixels.
I'm gonna change this to FC.
Just to see what happens.
Apparently, not much.
John, I'm giving you the link to the GitHub repository for the game. So notably, since this is an extremely large and complicated game, the developer has actually made a whole bunch of build scripts that do a bunch of data preparation stuff and glue together pieces to feed into Octo.
Looks like a tremendous amount of work and care went into this. That's super cool to see.
Yeah, very much so. And the developer of this game has made a number of contributions to the development and improvement of Octo itself, in no small part because he keeps bumping it up against the limitations of the platform and wanting more.
Very cool. Yeah, these games usually have really cool stories and really cool endings, but it sucks that this one's a little bit more dense or, obtuse. But yeah.
Just go home and play it by yourself, folks. Let's move on.
So this is weird that there's 2 entries here. But we'll just move right past it to Flappy Pong.
Ooh, I'm excited about this one.
So this is a game by C.L. Mortimer. This is his first foray into doing development for Chip 8. This game is a VIP basic Chip 8 accurate emulation speed game. It's totally authentic. The author said that he found out about Chip 8, run an emulator, and then discovered Octo and decided to participate this year. So thanks for building a game. I think this is solid.
Yeah. I think it's better than the one we had last year. So kudos.
421 bytes.
Flappy Bird seems pretty much a shoo-in for the VIP.
Well, because it fits with those constraints that I was talking about. You can just draw a handful of sprites per frame. It doesn't need a lot of visual fidelity as a game. You just have to pare it down to its most basic elements, and the collision that the sprite drawing system gives you is very helpful for this type of game. Everything's kind of working in your favor.
Right.
Yeah, you're defeated by
Tisk.
Defeated by basic integer precision.
I won, guys.
Nice, you did it.
You won the award.
Yeah, no, that made the game
best cheater. goes to JonTerp.
Is it cheating? No, here I'll make it. I want to feel the victory. Hang on.
I like how the trophy. You can't tell if it's a trophy or if it's a really buff man raising his arms. You can totally read
Maybe it's
either
both.
way.
Maybe it's a trophy of a really buff man.
Oh, it could be.
Here's all the checks for 255.
That's pretty generous of the thinking of the players. That 255 is when you get to the victory screen.
Yeah, I like this game. Makes me feel good about myself.
Twitch chat is saying that it's not cheating; it's modding.
Yeah,
It's true.
It's true. All right, our next game is by Tamar. It's called Wacky Pong.
I think it's
Tamar,
wonky.
It's Wonky Pong.
Wonky Pong. Tamar, a veteran of Awful Jams.
So I didn't have a huge amount of time to pick apart everything about the implementation of this. I was a little bit confused as to how the gravity mechanics, like what actually impacts them in this game. Something about the way that the paddles are moving seems to be altering the pull of gravity on the ball here. You can see it goes through parabolic arcs.
Yeah, I was holding down, and it was actually,
it's possible to get the ball to be falling towards the top of the screen as well. But the problem is that at no point does he actually in the docks what it is that controls it, and it's sort of unpredictable enough that I wasn't able to really figure out what was going on here.
I'm holding the buttons down. The buttons are seemingly affecting the gravity of the ball. Like I'm just kind of holding both up.
Is that all?
It
was enough for player 2 to win. So this is another example of a multiplayer Octo game. This is our finest year of multiplayer experiences.
All right.
And so this would work on Super Chip, but it uses XO audio for just the sound effect when the ball hits the extended balls. It'd be very easy to get it running on an HP48 if you wanted to.
So here's the second game by Tamar called Gravedigger.
Gravedigger.
It's a Breakout.
Yeah, it's Breakout, except sort of unplayable. As Tom said in the description for this, he just took the Breakout game first year OctoJam and changed the graphic in order to make graves. That's it.
Well, he's digging graves. It's good.
You're sort of digging and sort of filling in graves. I wasn't able to figure out if it's really possible to completely erase the graves. I guess because you're always drawing the same ghost sprite. If you exclusively hit the thing from the absolute topmost and the absolute bottommost post, you could eventually get the grave to disappear. So it's sort of interesting. It's just I played this for
hours,
more time than I really want to admit that I played it for, and I didn't seem to be making a lot of progress toward accomplishing that. I'm also certain from looking at the source code that nothing special happens if you do manage that. So nice try, Tom.
Thanks for ruining the mystery, I'd say.
That's what I'm here for.
I think John has a pretty good concept of how to beat this.
Okay. I guess it's that.
So up next,
Octo Roads by the Bobcats.
Yeah, this is Abby J, and this is a really cool XO chip game. It's running at maximum emulation speed. It's using a little bit more space than was available on a standard chip 8. So for this, it is a clone of the game Skyroads. So the idea is it's drawing like a perspective road that you're progressing your ship along. You use W and S to accelerate and decelerate, and you can jump in order to make it across those gaps.
Oh wow, that's impressive perspective.
How does one jump?
I think it's C. So if you use two hands, that's how I found it most easy to play.
There you go. Oh, that's nice looking.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Pretty tight on that first jump.
From a performance perspective, I noticed that the way that this game is handling the main player sprite, it actually erases it and redraws it. It would be possible to take advantage of the fact that you can scroll the ExoChip graphics planes independently in order to make it so that you're just scrolling the display with the player sprite instead of erasing or redrawing it. But honestly, the cost of doing the road rendering would probably be so dominant over that it wouldn't make very much of a difference. Just something to consider if you're making games like this. On ExoChip, you can have static or animated background and then an entirely separate layer of graphics that you don't have to erase and redraw every time.
A little performance boost, that would be kind of nice. How hard do you think it would be to try to do randomized sections of this?
I don't think that would be very hard from what I saw in the code, although it would mean that you wouldn't be able to consistently compare your experience.
That's true.
I actually really like the fact that these are designed levels. I think the one thing that this is missing is like a score counter or something, so that if you make it partway through the level, you get a sense of
it needs a timer.
Where there was to go, and you could compare your score to other people playing.
A lot of this game is based on kind of like luck and like memorization.
A little bit.
It's
definitely memorization. I don't think it's luck.
There's no such thing as luck in video games, John.
You're either good or you're not.
Yeah. A ray of heaven in that road. Yeah, this is really neat. I do think having a line that kind of shows you how far you're into a map that you're on, and also a timer could be your score, and you just want to get the lowest time possible going through a map.
Yeah, I think that this game was pretty down to the wire, just performance-wise. It is very ambitious, and this is, let's just be clear, the first time that anybody has successfully made an actually playable pseudo 3D game for this platform.
Yeah, this perspective is very impressive.
But there are ways to, if rendering a timer or something is too expensive, a really good strategy, even if you're not using OctoChip, is to have the timer and just show it when you're dead or something, when it's not a time-sensitive part of rendering. You still get most of the benefits as a player in terms of comparing your performance from run to run, but it doesn't slow down the hot loop of the game. Are you having fun, John?
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a fun game. It's very exciting to play.
You won.
We beat it.
You made it through all 4 levels.
Yeah, that's
nice
good.
Work.
That was actually.
Conceivably, there could have been more levels.
How much level data was there in bytes?
I would have to look at the source code to actually see. I didn't check if it was doing anything special in terms of the location where the level data was being stored, but there's tons of additional memory available. So in principle, you might have to do a little bit of additional screwing around to take advantage of it, but it would be possible to pack many more levels into ExoChip extended RAM. You still have, as Octo is showing you, 61 kilobytes to go. So next up is Subterraria, which holds an extremely special place in my heart because it makes use of a feature that I added last year, which is vertical display mode. You can rotate the screen 90, 180, or 270 degrees.
So to do this on the original hardware, would you have to just rotate the physical screen?
Yes, you would.
Whoa.
So in this game, you have sort of a lunar lander type deal. You have a certain amount of fuel, and you, yeah,
What?
you're trying to land it on that platform, and if you land too fast, you'll blow up. You don't have to be centered on the platform for it to work.
Okay, so there's going to be you start on a flat plane, and there's a second flat
John,
plane.
You're probably going to want to adjust the capture area because you're cutting off some of the display on the
Am
screen.
I? That's what I'm getting here. Let me make the window taller. Oh yeah, check that out. So like, apparently this won't scale in Y because it was cut off for me in Firefox. Let's see here.
Shrink it down.
Okay.
There you go.
It sucks because actually, OBS has gone backwards recently, but we'll deal with that scroll bar. We'll let it stay there. Okay.
Okay, so now that we can actually see the game, I just want to say that gameplay-wise, this is amazing. It feels really, really good.
I like how the sprite looks when rotated. There's something very pleasant about it.
Yeah, it looks almost like actually like transformed sort of scaling.
I think that he pre-baked
okay, that makes sense.
Right. Also, if you take a look at the source code, it is a real treat. Actually,
nice.
even like the level design of this level, I love because it tempts you to go get that fuel, but it's really likely to fuck you over if you try to go for that. It's actually completely solvable without the extra fuel.
You got it. Very
But
nice.
So I highly encourage people to take a look at the source code to this because it makes some interesting use of the new macro functionality, including using macros to at compile time calculate a lookup table for the rotated force vectors that you get. But also, it horrifically abuses Octo's support for Unicode identifiers in order to make it so that it uses Unicode characters for like box drawing to define all of the pieces of levels. When you either beat this game or get to the point where you don't feel like playing anymore, John, you should definitely take a look at the source code just to get a skim.
Oh, so
but I should get more than 100% fuel.
I think that it just like truncates, and so getting additional fuel over that limit actually help you.
It helped me before. It actually overlapped.
Yeah, one from the bottom.
Something that I found is that like holding down thrust seems to be a really bad idea. You get a lot less out of your fuel supply if you hold down. You want to be using short bursts.
I've actually noticed the exact opposite. You want to hold it down so you get some, because if you tap it, you actually lose more fuel.
Well, there's also inertia to take into account.
Yeah.
It seems like you want to do for your longest height, you want to do a long burst, and then everything else you want to do taps. So you have more maneuver.
You want to stop early enough that you don't overshoot.
Yeah.
You can be kind of abusive to your ship, though.
Well, you can bang it against a lot of stuff, but it like if you just get slightly over the velocity that it can deal with, you're instantly toasted. It's kind of touchy.
It's actually extremely forgiving from what I've seen because I've been able to kind of put some throttle in it, have it inertia just get thrown over and land on the platform.
Yeah, I haven't seen bad landings on the platform yet, which you've definitely pushed your
landing on the platform. Also, in terms of positioning, is quite forgiving. I think as long as you have either of your little struts just 1 pixel on it, that's good enough.
No, that's it.
Almost.
So this is one of the few games where I could actually see myself going back and playing this in the future.
So was the VIP actually like a place where you could sell games for, or?
No, not meaningfully. The VIP was a hobbyist computer, and there was a small community of people that got it and were sort of exchanging programs. I think that the largest community that ever existed was Viper magazine, which was published for something
It
like
sounds so
7
badass.
years. Yeah, Tunnel Snakes rule, and it ran for like 6 or 7 years, and I think that at its height it had about 200 subscribers. So that's the scale of people who are like passively involved in the scene. And in terms of people who are actively writing new software for the platform, it's probably an even smaller group than that. I would go so far as to say that like the rate at which games are being written for the OctoJam now is probably a lot more software than was being developed, when the VIP was new. I dare say that it's a little bit easier to get into now. Not only because the tooling is somewhat better, but also because you don't have to have this computer that only a couple of thousand people ever had.
I think you're taking a lot more damage now.
He's getting riskier.
There, you get that fuel.
This is mastery.
Yeah, it's not gonna be enough
Oh,
fuel.
there's no way that fuel.
Yeah, that fuel is there to fuck with you. I don't think it's a good idea to go for that fuel.
No, I don't think so. I love it, just letting it bounce.
From a game design perspective, I do like that it forces you to decide when you're fucked and start the level over.
I really like the bounciness. There's like more bounciness than you'd probably expect in a game like this, and then that's a huge factor of how you maneuver. Oh, you almost had it. Just like that, you do that tiny burst at the start that you feel comfortable will get you to the edge, then you keep on doing tiny little bursts, and then you have all that left over. Yeah.
What? God.
Oh no, bad bounce. Yeah, this is really impressive. There's a lot of this is a really nice implementation.
This would be
for a game like
competitive. This would have been competitive in like an actual OctoJam, like a full scale one.
For sure.
Probably would have been a contender for like most fun.
I think if you put if you had more room to work with on a non-Octo environment, you'd probably be able to have stuff like challenge markers. You can make it like for extremely difficult.
I mean, that's kind of what I see as the best case scenario for a lot of the original titles that come out of a jam like this is you build something in Octo and it forces you to make sure that the core mechanic of your game works really well and is really tight, and there's nothing that doesn't need to be there. And then if you took a game like that and then translated it to a somewhat less limiting environment, you could really give it that additional layer of polish that would make it accessible to a larger audience. So, viewing this experience as sort of an approach to prototyping.
How big is this game?
This game is 3,579 bytes, which leaves exactly 5 free.
So they really made usage of their space.
Oh, it looks like these levels are art bitmaps, like raw bitmaps.
Oh no, it's much better than that.
Nope. Well, so why don't you fill us in on the tricks that are going on here while I suffer?
Just implementation wise.
Yeah, sure.
So this game makes extensive use of the macro facility that was added to this year. This is basically a way of isolating patterns. You define a macro, and it's a sequence of instructions that will get expanded whenever you use the name of the macro.
You wasted so much fuel.
Yeah, tapping is not good.
And so by having this new tool for abstraction, you can sort of build your own facilities and extensions to the Octo language in terms of this that you couldn't previously. And some people use this just to sort of remove tedium and repetition from their code. But you can also use it to achieve things that otherwise you'd need external packing tools for. So for example, when this game is storing its level data, the tiles that make up the level only need like 4 bits to store the choice of tile.
You had to bounce it.
So it's much more efficient to use macros to do a compile time calculation in order to pack the level data together. Let's take a quick skim over the source code.
Sure.
I mainly want you to show the way that the levels are defined, which is hilarious.
Let me make this widescreen again.
That's the only portrait mode game that we had this year. So every time you see the :calc, that's a compile time calculation. It's used for some simple things and some much more elaborate things.
Mm-hmm. Physics.
Yeah.
That's
so
what
these are macros for doing math. So they'll get inlined for speed. This is where it's using a combination of several macros and doing some compile time calculation in order to come up with thrust vectors based on the ship's rotation. You can see that macros don't let you have loops, but there's a definition of 8 times, which just literally repeats a provided macro 8 times, and you can use that to unroll the table. It's somewhat similar to the abuses that some people do with the C preprocessor, but Octo's preprocessor is sort of unsettlingly even more flexible.
I like how this is blank. I'm assuming it's like a non-defined value going on here. In the cycles, the cycle is blank for this game.
I'm not sure what you're pointing to.
Right by example, the cycle drop down here. Oh wow, it's underneath the cycle drop down.
Oh yeah, so I wasn't able to see that on the display. The way that works is that this is customized to run at 60 cycles per frame, which is not one of the default settings. You can do that by creating your own GitHub gist and manually configuring the settings. But yes, it does add a little bit of additional mystique and virtuosity to this.
60 FPS gameplay.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's 60 cycles.
Takes a long time to load up, though.
Because the compiler has to do quite a bit of work. We've got some pending improvements to the compiler, which should make that less of an issue. You really should go back to the source code view and scroll down near the bottom. I want you to see the level definitions. You will see them.
Oh, wow.
So this is a set of macros that use Unicode box drawing characters. Keep going. So these are macros that do the byte pattern, and then here are the levels themselves.
That's a really cool way to reduce them down.
That's really neat, yeah.
So the award for the best abuse of the preprocessor in this year's competition goes to this game. I salute you.
So this is level 1, right here?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess
look familiar?
No, but we could go in and
make it impossible to win.
Where's the platform? Nothing like G and L. Oops. No, we're gonna modder in our own levels here.
I mean, could you have this work without using the specialty ASCII? I mean, you could just put another character here, right?
Certainly, you could.
This is much cooler.
It's just being done that way for convenience because So some programming languages enforce limits on what you can use for an identifier, and Octo really doesn't care. Its rules for tokenizing a program are simply that a program is a series of white space delimited tokens, and tokens are either a number or something else.
So you're saying this wouldn't actually run on hardware?
This would run on an HP48 if you turned it sideways, which would probably make the button controls very difficult to use. But once it's compiled down, all of those special Unicode characters and things just go away. It's just generating bytes.
So is there a way to get around the compiling going on here?
So there's basically two ways. You can do what Kesha did, which was to use external data prep tools to make it so that the compiler isn't really doing any work at load time, or you can make some tweaks to the way that the compiler is implemented to account for certain optimizations that Chrome typically makes and other JavaScript engines make. There's a pull request that was just issued that I'm going to take some time and review that should improve these issues quite a bit.
Well, cool. All right. So that was
Subterranea.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
All right. Next game here is Hate.
Well, it's actually Bergsteiger Simulator. So this is very similar to the game GURP, which is the sequel to QWOP.
What's happening here though?
So you're trying to move your hands in order to grip these handholds in order to progress your way up the side of a mountain.
Yeah, but I have no control over my hands. I'm not doing that. I'm just holding a button down.
I was a little bit confused as to how the controls worked. There was something that I was able to do to kind of direct the hand. It's kind of like there's some resistance and there's some shake to your hands, and then you can get a grip.
Get a grip, John.
Yeah. It doesn't really explain the controls anywhere as far as I could tell. So I only understand it from trial and error.
This actually looks impossible.
So do you have to start lower? Because once you go past them, I guess it'll probably pull you down. It seems like whatever you're doing, it's like hold on to it.
You can also kind of go down and work back and forth.
Oh, this is freaking out. I don't know what's going on.
It is an extremely mysterious game.
Oh, apparently there's feet. Oh, there's feet.
Of course.
So just imagine what this person looks like.
I think we can see
I don't think this game accounts for N key rollover.
That is probably a significant limitation.
This is cute. I like this.
I love the idea of a game where you are either a disembodied set of arms coming from the bottom of the screen or a disembodied set of legs coming from the top. Because it's not like your torso is grabbing anything, so it isn't really relevant.
Oh no.
I believe I broke it.
Go back to the feet, and hopefully the feet can do something.
Because it's showing you a little mini map of the slope, I believe.
Yep, it's broken. It's broken.
Par is 1 hour, John, so you have that.
What is the game that the guy who made QWOP just put out? What's it called? Or it's like the mountain one, the climbing one with the sledgehammer.
Yeah, I watched a bunch of people play it at a Halloween party. It was very exciting seeing that on a big projector.
Yeah, it looks a lot of fun. Reminds me of this game.
There's certainly a aesthetic and mentality that goes into these games that are sort of frustratingly controlled, but they provide a decent sense of challenge to pull you through that.
When I was playing this game, I was kind of surprised after a little while how the controls seemed to sort of melt away, and it was weirdly immersive for how limited it looks.
It feels like it's about to break at any moment, though.
Maybe. I mean, that is very thematically appropriate for the type of game that it's trying to be. You're climbing the craggy cliff of some mountain.
But like working within limitations, this game does pretty well.
Well, yeah, I mean, like it really does feel like it takes effort to piece by piece clamber up this wall.
We've all got mountains to climb.
Mm-hmm. It might have been neat if they had managed to give the hand like a little clench unclench animation.
Same with the feet. The feet should have a clench and unclench animation too.
How does one clench their feet?
You can
doing it right now.
Feet. Yeah, no, I'm doing it now too. We're clench buddies.
In sympathy for this game. Imagine the virtual reality version of this.
Crytek made one. Yeah, Crytek.
Your Oculus headset, and you've got your pixelated.
Oh, who was making the telephone tower repair simulator in VR way back when?
Blastron?
I think so. That was. I wish he had continued working on that because it was so good. It was just seeing the footage, not in VR, just seeing the video of it. It was so fear-inducing, right? It was really impressive.
So in general, I enjoyed this. I thought it was weirdly immersive for what it is.
Yeah, this is interesting, and it's never an easy challenge to design a game that has hard controls or sort of strange controls. And it's a balance of trying to make sure that it is strange and it's impacting how they play, but it's not totally frustrating. So, John is able to be playing through these levels. It's pretty good. Pretty good stuff.
Yeah, even John could play through these levels. Wow, hey.
Yes. Well, I mean, you're easily frustrated, I would say. Maybe not easily, but normally frustrated.
Even John will put up with the psychological challenges that this game poses.
Can you get the same graph? Oh,
yeah, you can.
Just like in real life.
Just like in real life.
Oh, I wish my legs were like that.
So this is the clear winner of the most realistic games submitted this year.
Does the heart mean anything? Is that like a heart rate or a...
It means that you still have the capacity to love.
Oh, that's good.
I think actually the shakiness of your hand depends and feet depends on how tired you are from gripping. And so I think that is indicating that.
No, it's Undertale, of course.
Yeah, this is an Undertale. I mean, this is Temmie's long limbs extending out, and the heart is avoiding them expertly.
Okay, I think we could probably move on to the last game of this year's.
You don't want to take a look at this. Oh, look at this sick ASCII art.
Ooh, showboating in there.
And long, well-described variable names.
Ooh, there.
All right.
Is there a...
So here we go. This is a very special treat. So Dun8 or DVN8, you should play this through its own web interface. There's a link if you scroll down a bit. So play the game with the text. So this embeds Octo in a web page, and the idea is that this game is paired with a paper manual with descriptions of the rooms that you visit, because the text for the game wouldn't fit inside. Lifelike mazes, real rooms, bone-tingling puzzles, an Octo-powered Chip 8 experience.
Okay, let me adjust my mic here.
I like how little space the the gameplay takes.
It's great. So So the controls are ASWD, and as you go from room to room, you should click on the text associated with the room to see the description of it.
Ah, that's neat. There we go.
Everdraed, would you like to narrate?
Not really.
Okay, fine.
I mean, we could alternate, maybe. I mean, it's strange seeing yourself repeated down a long hallway. It's perfectly harmless trap. It's more interesting than scary. All the rooms along this hallway have the same design, so I feel like you could walk forever if you wished. You do notice this room is slightly different than the others. There is a door that leads to the small library to the south.
Oh. Got a key.
You're skipping over like almost all of the descriptions of these rooms, John.
Oh, am I? I didn't notice.
like it's saying read and that number.
Yeah, I mean, the number of paragraphs we would have read through at this point.
Yeah. No, this being at the very end might be a disservice to it.
Perhaps. So John has the least attention span that he will for this game right now. But I read through every paragraph and took this at a pace when I was playing it. And first off, the graphics for this are completely gorgeous.
Yeah, they look really good.
Very well designed. Everything reads extremely well. The descriptions are fun and cute, and there are a number of somewhat interesting puzzles. It's a relatively short game, but for what it is, it's a very rich, multimedia experience. It's very creative, and in terms of actual like runtime limitations and things, this is using totally stock Superchip capabilities. It's running at 20 cycles per frame. It uses almost all of the memory that's available, but it fits in the ordinary memory space. So you could very plausibly have the printed out paper manual for this and be running this on your calculator and have the real game experience.
I wonder if there's any way that Octo could output the read so they automatically update on the write. Is there any functionality that could somehow do that?
So it would be possible to make the surrounding web interface read from flag registers, maybe, and then maybe now that I just said that, system log off will do that for the next game that he makes like this. But I just think this is an incredible job of packing both a beautiful and intriguing experience into the space that's available. Again, this is 3,340 bytes. To make this kind of a game.
I do think. I mean, there's something really neat about it extending out to a physical thing, and that being a definite.
It even has invisiclues. It's got feelies. I always encourage people to add feelies to their Octo games.
The UI lies to you once.
Exactly once.
It means you have to go into every room and press every button.
All 16 of them.
The tips lie to you once. Go down from the read one screen.
If the tips lie to you once is the lie, that could mean it lies an infinite number of times.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there is a map. I didn't.
Yeah, you picked up the map. The first key was sitting on top of a map, and now there's a mini map shown instead of just your little indicator.
What a slick game!
Yeah. All right, we got all three keys. No, I want to go here and then back. Wait, no, where's the key room?
The problem is that there's some non-Euclidean space going on here, so you need to work around the way that you originally got to the key room.
There.
And you should probably read the description to know what's happening in the scene.
Grandma!
You place each key in the respective keyhole and turn to hear something rocking in the next room. Taking a deep breath before opening the door, you walk into the lavender-perfumed room. Walking inside, you see your grandmother rocking away and looking at the instructions for an IKEA TM table. "Granddaughter," she explains happily, "I'm so excited you're here to help me with the new house. Ah." You sigh and explain that You sigh and explain to your grandmother that you would have been faster without the puzzles in the way. Now, you've always loved those puzzles, she states. I'm not stopping now. She gets out of the chair and gives you a hug. Now come give me a hand figuring out this table. My magic is no match for these Swedish wizards.
So that is the climactic and heartwarming ending to this.
You kind of skipped through a lot of the content. That's super cool.
That's something for all
like,
of the viewers to experience on their own.
I love how everyone's like, "Oh, John's never going to figure it out without reading."
Well, you know, like you can win this game by just sort of randomly hitting ASW for a while until you get to the end.
I feel like there's a lot more space on that map. I feel like there's more secrets to be found there.
Oh well, that's for everyone else to figure out. They'll do it.
Yeah, that's everything. So to everybody who participated in, thanks. You're what make this interesting every year. And to everybody who has been in the peanut gallery watching these games and trying them out, that's great too. Having an audience makes it very rewarding to build games for Octo.
Yeah, really great work, everybody. There's some super impressive, both visually for being able to implement very strong aesthetic within the very intense limitations of Octo, and also some very impressive technical forays into stuff that we have not seen before, especially with perspective and screen updates. Just really impressive stuff in general. So great work, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So this, if you're new to this jam, we have it every single year in the month of October. So if you missed out this time around, set a little calendar, set a little reminder, come hang out in the Discord around fall. You can get on OctoJam 5, which is next year, starting on October 1st. Isn't that right?
That's right. Every October.
Every October. Going forward, for Awful Jams, we will be announcing the Winter Jam dates around mid-December. So look forward to that. If you like more of a general purpose game jam, you can come hang out. There is a Discord. If you go to I think the Discord link might be in Twitch. If it is, it's probably outdated. But if you go to our Twitter @AwfulJams, you can grab the Discord invite and just come hang out. We're pretty chill. We're friendly, aren't we?
I don't know. I guess, sure.
You vouch for us. Yeah, you can come hang out. I think that'll do it for this stream.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for hanging out.